Yes, hello guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about definitions and RSTP, and then we're going to dive into the RSTP to explain a little bit about transfers, everything concerning the RSTP. But we're going to talk about a lot of definitions, those terms that they can come up in your exam. So we're going to be looking at all these details so that at least you have knowledge on this. As I promised last time, today was the RSTP. The last 2 days we were speaking about the FFAR, which is the FIFA Football Agent Regulation. So today we're going to be talking about RSTP and then looking into details, what it includes. But of course, I'm just going to explain the basics so that you have an idea of what it is, so that at least you can get knowledge from everything happening in it. So today is RSTP, and as I repeated last time, if you have an idea of, or if you didn't look the past videos talking about the FFAR, you can go and rewatch those ones, because we're not going to go back to those content. We're just going to keep going. I'm just trying to have this process, as I told you people, I think 3 days ago, that we're going to go gradually. So if we do the RSTP, the moment we finish with the RSTP, we jump to another topic. But the RSTP is the longest topic in the FIFA study material, and also carry most of the materials that the exam will come on. So that the exam most of the content that will come, that the exam will be taken from. So it's nice that at least we touch this one. So we did FFR. So now let's go to RSTP. Okay, so today, what have I prepared for you guys? So we're going to be looking about key definitions used in international football transfers. That's under the RSTP. We're going to be looking about the difference between a former club and a new club. We're going to be looking about what counts as an official match, as official matches and organized football. We'll look at the concept of protected period in a player's contract. We'll look at also the player registration rules under FIFA. We'll look at the transfer rules and registration. So that's a lot. And then we'll look at the transfer rules and registration limit. We'll look at loan regulations and restrictions. We'll look at contract terminations, rules, and just cause. And then we'll go a little bit more into that also, look at contract termination, termination with just cause and without just cause. Contract stabilities also. So you can see the RSTP, it's quite bulky, so that's why I have to do a lot. We have to run a little bit more quicker with the RSTP, so that at least we can cover much of it. So let's say, okay, but without hesitation, let's just dive straight into it. So things like key definitions, I'm just going to be, I think most of the things, the key definitions or the names are a little bit basic, so we will just start to go through it. When I approach something that is more challenging, that I feel I can explain, then I will explain for you so that you understand. So first, basic definition. These are just starting from, if you go to the RSTP, it starts with the basic definitions till you start reaching the places that they explain rules and regulation. But anyways, the first thing is former club. I think we all know this. The club that the player is leaving, that's your former club. A new club, the club that the player is joining. Former association is an association where the former club is affiliated. So if a player played, let me say, from a team in Africa and they moved to Europe, the former association is back in Africa, that country that he played, the association is there. And then the new association will be the one, let's say, like the FA, let's give an example. If I played from my home country, let's say Cameroon, and then I moved to Finland, I started playing to Finland, that is what we call the FA is a new association. So official matches include national league matches, national cup competitions, and international competitions. Friendly games are not official matches. So those are basic things that I'm just trying to point out so that we go fast. Then organized football refers to football, football under competition. So any friendlies that you're but it's just like competitions organized by FIFA, confederations, and national associations. Then the third definition we'll look at is like protected period. Let me not rush too much quick because at least I still need to explain this. So protected period, I think we spoke about this already, but I'm still going to go through it again. It refers to 3 seasons or 3 years if the contract was signed before the player turns 28. So this is but if the player was, let me say, if the player is after 28, then it's 2 seasons or 2 years. As I explained to you people earlier, I always use the player years just to make it familiar. You people get it clear. I use the case of Bruno Fernandes of Manchester United, who signed contract 20. His contract extension of 2024 with Manchester United. But by that time he signed that contract, he was already 29. So what was his protected period? By basis of the definition of protected period, it's 2 seasons or 2 years. So hadn't been he signed that contract before he turned 28, his protected period would have been 3 years. And this protected period, what is it? Because you might get it also in the exam. They say, what is protected period? This is the explanation, but it's a period that you cannot also breach. The player and the club is very important. The player and the club cannot breach this contract. Anybody who breaches the contract within this period pays huge fine, because let me say, as a player, you face sporting sanctions and fine. As a club, you can get banned for registering players even, or transfer windows. Now let's move to player registration rules. So let's look at first player status. A player can only have 2 status, one amateur and one professional. That's normal. So if you're not amateur, you're professional. These are just the status recognized by FIFA. And a professional player is one who has a written contract with a club. You know, that receives money for what he's doing. So that's who they call professional player. So many people can call themselves professional player, but you're only professional when you receive money for what you're doing. Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at the next one, player registration system. Every association must have an electronic registration system. Now it's electronic. Every association is having an electronic system. And also each player, when you register, you receive a FIFA ID. That FIFA ID, it's you're being recognized by FIFA if they want to check something about you. And normally only registered players also can partake in organized football. So I think people all know that. Yeah. So let's move on just a moment. So maximum club rule. A player may register with maximum 3 clubs in one season. Okay, we're going to explain this, but only play official matches for 2 clubs, for 2 clubs in the same season. This rule protects the integrity of the competition. So they say, okay, a player may register for 3 clubs maximum one season, but only play official matches for 2 clubs. So in essence, this is saying that, let's take, for example, if a player plays for, let's say, Liverpool or whatsoever club, and then maybe it's not getting playing time, goes on loan to an Aston Villa, let's give an example like that. That's already 2 clubs in the season, for example. But let's take, for example, now, the season finishes there, then the MLS, that's the season America is still playing on. If he moves to America just quick, he can play the season there. So that is what they say, 3 clubs. Listen, those are exceptions. I'm just giving an exception where there's exception for the rules. Okay, let's say, okay, what is bridge transfer? I think we spoke about this also. A bridge transfer occurs when there's 2 consecutive transfer happening within 16 weeks. And the middle transfer exists to always circumvent the regulation. That's to bypass the regulation. That's always what FIFA looks like, breach of transfer. So when this happens, both the clubs involved in this are always sanctioned by FIFA, because a breach of transfer Most clubs try to use this to bypass the rules and regulation, because why the reason they say 16 weeks is, normally if you transfer to a club, and let's say within the summer, let me say from June, when the transfer period is open, the general transfer window is open. Then before July, you're already moving to another club. So then before you move to another one again, that's always like a breach of transfer, the way FIFA looks at it. Okay, now the next one is registration period and transfer window. Each association must have two registration periods per season. I think we all know this, or if we don't know, this is it. The first registration period is between 8 to 12 weeks. So get that clear, because you might also have this kind of things there. So it's the first registration period is between 8 to 12 weeks, and the second one is between 4 to 8 weeks. The total transfer window per season is maximum 16 weeks. So it depends how you share it, because each association have a little bit slightly varied. Yeah. But yeah, most of the time, the transfer window first registration period is always between 8 to 12 weeks. So let's just look at an example where this applies. Let's take for the general transfer window. Let's take, for example, in the Premier League, which is like the most powerful league in the world. If you discover from June, July, August, that's where the transfer window happens. That is 3 months, which is 12 weeks. Then they have one also, which is the second transfer period, which is January. Which is the January transfer period. So you see, for that also they say it's between 4 weeks to 8 weeks. So you see that that's how the Premier League is scheduled. But if you go deeply, they are also different, especially in Scandinavia. Their transfer period may vary a little bit, but they still have to meet these. They still have to fall inside this category, what we're explaining here. Okay, let's move international transfer certificate. So a player moving between associations must receive an international transfer certificate. This ITC must be issued free of charge. It's not payment. It must be issued free of charge, and it cannot contain condition. So let's take, for example, if you're moving from your former association, let me say if a player is moving from a former association to a new association, everything goes through the international transfer certificate, so that when FIFA wants to verify, they can see the ITC is made so that people can verify what is happening about you. Okay, now let's look at loan rules. A professional player can be loaned to another club. Key rules: loan must be agreed in written, for sure. Maximum of loan duration is 1 year. There's no loan duration for 2 years. Maximum is 1 year. A minimum duration minimum duration is between two registration period. The player must sign a contract with the new club also. Now let's look at loan limits. Loan limit from July 2024. That was a rule that was applied. Loan limits we have club may have maximum of 6 loan out. So let's take, for example, if Barcelona wants to loan players, they can loan maximum of 6 players out, and they can receive maximum of 6 players in. And also now between two clubs, let's take, for example, if let's say Barcelona have a loan with Manchester United, they have Rashford. So they can, let me say, they can only loan 3 players between them. You understand what I mean? So it's let's say three loans. If I explain you, yeah, 3 loans between 3 loans. So if Barcelona want to keep dealing with, let's take, for example, as I said, Manchester United, maximum of loans they can have there is 3. So we look at next thing is contract stabilities. Contracts must be respected. Contract must be respected. What I mean by that, a contract may end only through 1, expiring of the contract. That's why I say contract stability. Contract must be respected. B, mutual agreement. And C, just cause termination. So what I mean by that is, so you can if a contract okay, let me break it a little bit deep in detail. So for your contract to get for anything to happen with your contract, let's take, for example, the contract has to expire, you cannot just terminate your contract like that as a player. Normally, these days, you always have, let me say, agents trying to, sometimes agents trying to find ways for the players to maybe have a termination of contract if the player is not happy. But that in football, you are always going to find, you might likely pay fine in most of those things. So when you've already had a contract, you have to respect that contract, and the contract, the only way you leave from that contract is the contract expire, or you have a mutual agreement with the club, for example, or now there's just cause termination. Just cause termination means you have the right to terminate the contract because the other party, which is the club, has not met certain obligations. Then you have just cause to terminate. So now let's look at just cause. Let's go next thing. Let's look at just cause termination. A player may terminate a contract if the club fails to pay 2 months' salary. This is just cause termination based on salary. So, in this effect, the player must send a written notice given 15 days to the club. After these 2 months, let's say, let me break it down. So, let's take, for example, you have your client and your client is playing for a club and they don't pay your client 2 months' salary. Your player still has to, I mean, you have to still send 15 days notice to the club before now when the club doesn't respond, before you have now just cause to terminate that contract. This case, uh I think I made mention of it last time, that there was a man who spoke to me talking about his son was playing in Germany, moved playing in Germany. I hope I'm not really leaning back. Let's see. His son was playing in Germany, moved to moved to Turkey, moved to Turkey, and for a second division team in Turkey, the salary they agreed was quite good. But the first 2 months he was being paid salary, and then after they stopped paying him salary. So it was quite so now the man he contacted me on LinkedIn to find out what is the situation or what can he do. So I was telling him, I just gave him these details here. So most of these things we speak here, these are the things that you can also apply, because you have a client. If you don't know these details, then it'll be difficult for you to actually implement those things. So because now in football, a lot of clubs do this. They bring a player, especially in those lower leagues, because they know people. You might not carry the case to FIFA, or you might not know a lot about the rules. The agent might not know a lot about the rules. So they try to weigh if the agent knows certain things. So what the clubs in those lower leagues that they don't have too much money do is they can bring a player the first 2 months, or 3 months, or 6 months if your salary is paid. Then out of a sudden, you hear this kind of statement that the president has traveled. The president, when he comes back, they will sort out the bills. Just be patient. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. 1 month, no salary. 2 months, no salary. And the person who pays you salary, you don't see him. Probably the person doesn't come to the office anymore, or whatsoever things, because all these kind of things are always the person who pays salary, it doesn't maybe show up most of the time for you to have a conversation. So most clubs in lower leagues are not professional clubs, but let's say not like in the top leagues, in the lower sides, in those lower leagues. You understand what I'm saying? They do this a lot. So unfortunately, this player who I said played in Germany, he was playing for a team. I don't know, I forgot. But yeah, he was playing for an academic team, a professional academic team, one of the first division teams in Germany. So now he decided to take. He couldn't break into the first team, so he decided to move to Turkey, second division, so that he can play men's football and get experience. So he arrived there. The first 2 months, salary well paid, everything nice, contract playing and everything. But out of a sudden, he couldn't receive his salary. So he thought, that kind of thing. Your first time you don't receive your salary, you just say, okay, well, maybe they'll pay. They actually forgotten, or that it will come. So 1 month he didn't get anything. Went to the office. They said, "Oh, sorry, we're going to figure it out." 2 months, no salary. So So when the parent of this player contacted me because they didn't have any agent, he contacted me because he has been seeing what I was posting on LinkedIn. So the advice I gave him is because he said him and his son just want to leave Turkey and go back and go back to Germany because they were Germans national, they had German nationality. And I said, no, if you do this, then probably you're also at fault. When the case go to FIFA, you'll be at fault. But the right thing to do here is you have to give them a 15 days notice after your 2 month salary has not been paid. I mean, after your son 2 month salary has not been paid. And when he gave them the 15 days notice, there was no response. Then it was easy enough for him to walk off without, because that is what we call just cause. He went away now. But after, when he took the case to FIFA, and then everything, every salary and all his contract, you have to do all this procedure because it's a matter of procedure. All his contracts, so because he had 2.5 years contract with the club. So what FIFA will do is they will calculate every salary, your full package, and pay you at once. So that was what the player had to be paid because the club has breached the contract. So that is what we call termination of contract with just cause. So you have to follow all this procedure to be able to have that. Okay. So I hope people understood this because this actually happened in real life. And there was also a person who was playing, a player who was playing for, I'll call this club Dinamos Bucharest. It's a big club in Romania. Actually, contacted me also on LinkedIn. So we had a few because Dinamo, I think people know, is even a big, very big club. I think most people know this club. Came to me, spoke to me about the situation that is happening, that he has not been paid certain amount of salary. How can he go about it? And then we were having this conversation that okay, this is what you have to do because not most agents, when they have their license, they don't try to go through these things. So it's quite difficult for them to know some details about this. But anyway, I hope you get you get the idea of what I'm saying. Yes, seeing on the chat box. Welcome to everyone, and Amiyo Ogole. What's the name? Good evening. Yes, good evening, and again, watching from France. Yes, you're welcome. Welcome everyone watching, and always leave your name so that your friends also watching can see where you're watching from. It's nice to always know that you are turning up to watch. So, but great to have people here on board. The RSTP, I always say the RSTP is like almost like the longest part of the FIFA study material. Once you go through the RSTP, it starts looking more easy. And once you know it, is a little bit nice because most of the things in the RSTP are things that you're going to apply on your agent day-to-day life. And also this both the RSTP and the FFFR, yeah, most of the things you're going to be using them, as an agent. That's why FIFA gives most of the exam comes towards this these materials. Unlike, let's take for example, the FIFA statutes, those are actually those rules and regulation, ethics code, and all those things. Yeah, those are things that you should know, so that you don't mess up, if I may say. But those things are things that you will not really be applying on your day-to-day work, except you make a mistake. Of course, it's good to read those things so that you know that you don't make a mistake, but you won't really be applying it. Let's take for example, you need to know the RSTP because you'll be using it when you're being transferred. You need to know the FFR, not even without passing even after passing the exam, because you'll be using, let's take for example, the principle of loan. You should be for an agent, you should be knowing the amount of loans your player can go. Let's say if your player is, let's say, not playing, having playing time, and also this situation that they always say, if your player doesn't play, I think most agents don't even know this, that if you have a player at a club and he doesn't play 10% of the games, excuse me, in a season, you have a right to terminate that contract based on sporting cause. Let me say sporting integrity. So you have the right to terminate your the contract there. But I think most people also don't know that. So, anyways, let's go to contract stability. As I said, okay, a contract may only be terminated in three ways: expiring of the contract, mutual agreement between parties, termination with just cause, as we spoke earlier. So let's look at now those just cause, those termination. Terminating a contract with just cause. A contract may be terminated without consequences if just cause exists. And one of the things, the example was one I just gave people. Just cause existed, and that's why the player terminated the contract. But you have to follow all those rules. So, just cause exists when one party can no longer reasonably continue the contractual relationship. Yes, as I explained earlier. Example situation include serious breach of contract, like salary, abusive behavior forcing a termination, that most clubs also in lower leagues do this kind of thing professional. They try to make you feel uncomfortable because when money is people don't talk about this kind of things a lot, but when money is involved and people are not having, maybe clubs are not having money, there are things that you start to see in the changing room. Probably they try to make you not feel comfortable so that you can leave. So those are a lot of things happen like this in lower and in players in lower leagues. Okay, then the next is termination due to unpaid salary. I think we spoke about, yes, that was what we just spoke about. FIFA regulation give players protection when clubs do not pay them. So a player may terminate the contract with just cause if the club fails to pay 2 months' salary, as we explained earlier. However, the player must first put the club in default in writing, which is the 15 days we just mentioned. If the club still does not pay the player may terminate the contract. So those were all the things we explained there. Now we move forward to just cause, sporting just cause. A player may also terminate a contract due to sporting just cause. This applies when an established professional plays less than 10%, as I spoke to you earlier, of the official matches during the season. However, each case is assessed individually. The player must terminate the contract within 15 days after the last official match of the season. So you understood this. So let's take, for example, even you have played, you see lacking game time and you play less than that, let's say 10%. You don't just go within the season and terminate. You just wait when the season is over before you do that. You can. So as it says here, the player must terminate the contract within 15 days after the last official match of the season. So if you and your agent, you have sat down and calculated that, okay, we are not getting a lot of joy in this team, so, and we have been playing, let's say, just 8% of the games. When the season finishes, then it's good. You can go terminate the contract. Then that will be okay. So those are the things that you can have an idea about, and it will go. It will help. It will help you as an agent in future. Okay, the next we have protected period. I think I've spoken also about this already, so I'm just to skip that. I'm going to skip that. Protected period, I already explained. 3 seasons if you're more than 28, or 2 seasons if you're less than 28. So let's look at consequences of breach contract. If a contract is terminated without just cause, compensation must be paid. So if you're terminating, if you accept that your player terminates his contract without just cause, you're going to pay compensation. You're going to pay compensation, and the compensation is calculated based on the remaining value of the contract. If the player signs a new contract, the value of the new contract may be deducted from the compensation. In addition, the player may receive additional compensation equivalent to 3 months' salaries in extreme cases. The additional compensation may reach 6 months' salary. However, total compensation cannot exceed the remaining value of the contract. So, in essence, this is just explaining that most of the time when you terminate your contract with a club, and when FIFA rules into your favor because the club breached the agreement, most of the time they pay you off your contract. So if the contract was 6 months, let me say a year, let's give an example, that club will pay you that salary completely. Just pay the salary completely. Okay, now let's look at sporting sanctions for players. If a player breaches a contract during protected period, as we spoke earlier, sanctions apply. These sanctions include, okay, now let's look at it for when the protected period I've been speaking about. So sanctions include a 4-month suspension from official matches. In serious cases, the suspension may extend to 6 months. So this was the case we spoke about the protected period. So at least people have gotten one of the sanctions that there's no point for you breaching your contract in protected period. Protected period is that the period of 28 years. I mean 3 seasons if you're 28 and below, and 2 seasons if you're above 28. So when you breach a contract, then as a player, you can face a 4-month suspension of official matches, and the suspension may extend to 6 months. Now let's look at sporting sanctions for club. The one was for player. This is now for clubs. If a club induces a player to break a contract during protected period, the club may be banned from registering players. The ban may last 2 entire registration period. Also, this applies to both the national transfer and international transfer. Now let's look at inducing breach of contract. A person who intentionally encourages a player to break a contract may be sanctioned. These include club agents, other football stakeholders. So you cannot induce a player to break contract. If not, as an agent, you'll be sanctioned. Now let's look at contract rules for professional professional players. FIFA regulation also establish rules for players' contracts. Key rules include minimum contract length until the end of the season. Maximum contract length is 5. Although now we are seeing things that are happening that clubs are finding a way to breach this. For example, you look at a club like Chelsea, they give people 8 years contract. But according to FIFA rules, it was always maximum 5 years contract. For player under 18, maximum contract length was 3. Negotiation with a player under contract. If a club wants to sign a player under contract, the new club must inform the current club in writing. But this also, according to, there's always tapping happening behind, because now agents are working that they go speak to the player and all those things in real. But according to FIFA rules, these are the things that if it comes in the exam, you need to put it down on your exam, or you need to answer. A player may only negotiate freely when their contract has less than 6 months remaining. So this also is one thing you need to know. Let's take, for example, if you have a 5 years contract and then the club is refusing to renew your contract, then 6 months before your contract expires, you can start speaking to other clubs. So third-party influence. Let's look at third-party influence. FIFA strictly prohibits third-party influence in football transfer. This means no external party can influence a club transfer decision. Yes, I think we spoke about this last time, the case of why third party was banned, the case of Mascherano and Tevez. That's the most highest third party case that I can always give example of, because that's what made third party actually should change. So now there should be no third party actually in football. There should be no third party. So no third party can influence a transfer. This rule protects football and the competition. Now we talk of third party ownership. Third party ownership of a player economic right is also prohibited. This means the third party cannot own a percentage of a player futures transfer fee. This rule came into force 1st May 2015. So this is the case we are speaking about. Now, let's talk of special protections for female players. FIFA regulation provides strong protection for female players. A contract cannot be terminated because a player becomes pregnant. And also clubs who don't have good finances, they start to do this properly. If a player is pregnant, they're saying that you have league games. Why are you getting pregnant? All those kind of things. By natural, these are the rules and regulations. As I said, a contract cannot be terminated because a player becomes pregnant. If a club terminates a contract due to pregnancy, the club is considered to have terminated the contract with just cause, and the club would thereby face sanction and pay the remaining salary for the female player. Compensation for pregnancy-related termination. If a contract is terminated due to pregnancy, the player may receive compensation equal to the remaining of his contract. That's what I just explained. Plus 6 months of additional salary. So which means that's even an extra bonus. So for the player. So if your contract is terminated, then they pay you off your contract, then 6 months of additional salary just for doing that for termination. This makes clubs at least not to even go there to do that, because they know they're going to lose a lot of fans. Now let's look at maternity adoption and family leave. Female players are entitled to maternity leave, adoption leave, family leave during this period. The player must receive at least 2/3 of her salary during this period. So if you're on maternity leave or sick leave or whatsoever, and a football player, while you're home being on maternity, you receive 2/3 of your salary. So if you were earning, let's as a player 10,000, you receive 2/3 of that salary while you're on maternity leave. Why this matters for FIFA agent exam? The rules appear frequently in exam. Okay, yeah. So these things are always popping up. So at least you should have an idea of how this happens. Okay, so now let's look at, I think I've tried to go a little bit faster so that at least we could cover a little bit of these things, most of them. So those are the basics at least for RSTP. We're going to continue also the RSTP also tomorrow, but I wanted to rush a little bit more so that I can give you the basic tips on this. So as I always say, if you watch this and you want to still watch it, you can always put on your ear and just listen to what I'm saying. You're going to still pick one of few things there, especially like what we just spoke, like protection for female players, knowing that the players on maternity leave, the player have to receive 2/3 of their salary, the contract termination with just cause, everything. This is very important for you as an agent. So yes, you can always listen to this at your own time. If the pace I'm going a little bit faster, you slow listen, continue slow listen so that you get grasp of it. So, but anyways, let's jump into the questions concerning just based on these topics we have treated. So we have 10 questions, and then we are going to, and that will be done for today. So let's crack on. Under FIFA regulation on the status and the transfer of players, several definitions clarify the rules of clubs involved in a player transfer. When a player moves from one club to another, the regulations distinguish between the former club and the new club. Which of the following statements correctly describe the term former club within the meaning of FIFA regulations? So this is a very good question on how the exam is set. So they give you a lengthy thing to read, but now you just you come at one point in time, at one point and they say, which of the following statement correctly describe the term former club? So everything focuses just on this former club within the meaning of the FIFA regulation. And we explain this. So A, the club that received the player after the transfer. No. B, the club that previously trained the player at youth level. No. C, the club that the player is leaving in a transfer transaction. Yes, that is correct. And D, the club that pays the transfer compensation. So it's C. So these also you can check, you can find them also on the definitions, under the RSTP definitions. This is under definitions. Question 2. The FIFA regulations define official matches in order to determine eligibility rules, disciplinary sanctions, and competition participation. Which of the following types of matches are considered official matches under FIFA regulations? I think this might be easy. A. Friendly matches between clubs? No. B. Trial matches organized by clubs? No. C. Matches played within organized competitions such as national leagues and cups? Perfect, that's it. D. Preseason exhibition matches. So the answer is C. Also, you can find this on the official matches. That's definitions on the RSTP. Now, question 3. The concept of protected period is essential in maintaining contractual stability between players and club. According to FIFA regulation, how long is a protected period when a professional signs a contract before turning 28 years old? We just spoke about this already. So this is before turning 28 years. A, 2 seasons or 2 years? No, that's wrong. B, 3 seasons or 3 years? Yes, that is correct. C, 5 seasons. D, 1 season. So the answer is B. Question 4. FIFA regulation impose limitations on number of clubs with which a player may register during a single season. According to the regulation governing player registration, how many clubs may a player be registered with during one season? So how many clubs can a player be registered just in one season? So you see the way the way these questions come, because I try to take past questions that came through the exam also. You have bulky part, but if you analyze the question, there's one most of the time, if you analyze the questions where then you can see how you can interpret it easily. So let's just go through one more time. According to the regulations governing player registration, how many clubs may a player be registered within during one season? A, 2 clubs. B, 3 clubs. C, 4 clubs. D, unlimited. The answer is B, 3 clubs. And you can find this under registration of players also. Question 5. Why a player may be registered with multiple clubs during a season? Restriction also applies to the number of clubs for which a player may participate in official matches. So according to FIFA regulation, how many clubs may a player represent in official matches during one season? A, 1 club. B, 2 clubs. C, 3 clubs. D, 4 clubs. What's the answer? The answer is B, 2 clubs. But in this case, so you can read this under registration. But in this case, also there's an exception to the rules. As I said, you can. I just give an example. I give an example where in this case there's always an exception. But this we have to follow what the question was asking. So that's the answer. But hadn't been they said, how many clubs can a player play in a season, whatever, and then they gave these exception rules that even if the player if the question said even if the player has an overlapping season, because overlapping season is like you might be playing the Premier League, and when the Premier League is finished, uh, the MLS is still going on. So which means if a player finishes there and still transfer to the MLS, he's going to start playing there, which is that he has an overlapping season with the Premier League. So that is you are already playing for 3 clubs. So let's take for example you were playing for Manchester. Your player was playing for Manchester United and went on loan to Aston Villa. Then the season finished in the Premier League. He immediately moved to America to play in the MLS. And so when he plays there, it's already like 3 seasons. So because the MLS has an overlapping season with the Premier League. So you see, that's how that's I hope you understood what I'm saying. So it's two, but also there's also always an exception. So you have to be careful with this question. So question 6, the FIFA regulation prohibits certain transfer practices that attempt to circumvent transfer rules and regulations. Which of the following scenarios best describe a breach transfer? A player signing two contracts simultaneously? No. B, a player loan between 2 clubs? No. C, a transfer conducted through the FIFA clearinghouse? No. And D, 2 consecutive transfers designed to bypass regulations on defraud another party. So yes, the answer is D. Now, question 7. In international football transfer, the International Transfer Certificate (ITC) plays a key role in allowing players to be registered with a new association. Which of the following statements correctly describe the insurance of an ITC? A. It may include financial conditions imposed by a former club. No. ITC is always free. Okay, B. It must be issued free of charge and without conditions. Okay, that's the answer B. C. ITC must be approved by both clubs before insurance. No. D. It may only be issued after player signs a contract. No. So the answer is B. It may be issued free of charge and without condition. So this, you can find this also under the study material, Article 9, International Transfer Certificate. Question 8, 3 to go. Loan transfer are subject to specific rules regarding their durations and contractual agreement. According to FIFA regulations, what is the maximum duration of a loan agreement for a professional player? I said the maximum. So what's maximum duration? A, 6 months. B, 1 year. C, 2 years. D, 3 years. So the answer is B, as we earlier spoke, that maximum duration for a loan is 1 year. There's no 2 years loan. You cannot be loaned to this in you. If you want to, you have to come back, then your club send you back on loan. So maximum is 1 year. Question 9. The FIFA regulations allow players to terminate contracts under certain circumstances where continuing their employment relation becomes unnecessary. Which of the following situations may constitute just cause for terminating a contract? So, in essence, just interpret it locally. That what, let's say, if you are to terminate your contract for just cause, what are the reasons? So, let's say A, the player receives a better contract offer. No, you cannot terminate for just cause for that. So B, the player is unhappy with the coach. No, you cannot terminate for just cause for that. C, the club fails to pay at least 2 months' salaries. Yes, you can be, okay, well, C, let's say, okay, D, the club finishes low in the league table. D. But with this answer, let's say the club fails to pay the player 2 months' salary. We're just using the principle of elimination here to eliminate this. However, if there was another answer that says the club fails to pay the player a 2 month salary, and then the player inform in written notice the club 15 days, give a notice to the club 15 days before terminating the contract, that would have been the perfect answer. But now, based on the answers that have been given here, you have to go with this one. I hope people understand what I'm saying. This you can also find it on the study material article 14B's outstanding salaries. And last question is, the FIFA regulation established the concept of sporting just cause, which allows players to terminate their contract in specific sporting circumstances. Under which of the following conditions may a player terminate their contract based on sporting just cause? We spoke about this. A, if the player earns a low salary than teammates. No. B, if the club changes its manager. No. C, if the club signs another player in the same position. No. D, if the player has participated in fewer than 10% of official matches during the season. So the answer is the last one, if the player has participated in fewer than 10% of official matches during the season. Yes, so that is all for the questions. Question 10, yeah, that's it. So we have done, let's say we have done how many pages of the RSTP have we done? So yes, we have done special provision relating to female players. We have done a lot. So tomorrow we're going to continue with it. So I think maybe we can do all the RSTP in 3 days. And we can summarize it off, let's say in 3 days. Let's say, let me put front page 176 of. So yes, we have done that. Okay, we have done this part of the RSTP. So tomorrow we will be doing. We'll continue with the RSTP, but yes, we'll be doing other parts. We'll do international transfer involving minor. If you discover today we haven't spoken about training compensation and minor. Let's see, just a moment. Let's see. So yes, let's see. No, I think we did more. Yes, I was just trying to look at a topic that I'll have tomorrow. Yes, so it involves also training compensation. Just after that, I want to just try to cover all the RSTP. So with most of these things, because I'm covering most of the two main topic, just trying to do a revision on the two main topic. What are the benefits of having a YouTube channel as an agent? How has it impacted your profession? Good evening, yeah. The benefit of having a YouTube, listen, I think most of the thing is, first thing is that I'm just trying to, when I'm teaching you people, because it makes me to go into it makes me, let's say, spend my day also trying to read this a lot. And what it helps me is when I'm sitting with sporting directors, I know most of the things, the rules, things to say, things to apply. So in essence, it helps me professionally. Let's say when I'm sitting with those CEOs, I can communicate and I feel that I'm on that level of communication. Because the most difficult thing, the most difficult thing as an agent is that you walk into a sporting director office and you are having a meeting. He says sit down, then they pull up, then they say they're talking something about contract. You are not really comfortable because you're a little bit scared that the sporting director might ask a question and about transfer or whatsoever, and you have no idea. Let's take for example, the sporting director might say, "Oh, I had this player who was on loan. I don't know what the rule says. Do I need to bring him back on loan and send him somewhere, or he can come up with something and say, we have 6 players on loan. I would like to send extra 2 players on loan so that they can get game time. But normally, that maximum loans to be sent out are 6. And if he's saying that thing, and probably if you have no knowledge of these things, then you cannot communicate those things. So that's the massive thing. It helps me. So, and it also helps me because when I'm speaking, let's take for example CEOs. It's almost like when you speak, you can give them some few. I don't want to say advice, but when you're speaking, then you're telling them certain few things. They feel you're valuable. That if they're going astray on certain rules and regulation, of course, those people have also lawyers. You can pull them, but in essence, is because when you have this kind of knowledge, it's helpful. That because everybody in this industry wants to be around someone who provide value. When an agent doesn't know a lot of things, and most of the time you're being ignored. That's the thing, you're being ignored, or you find yourself in those places where people that you can only speak to people that the people don't have an idea of what you're saying. For example, when I went to interview let me say, CEO of clubs in Copenhagen or in Copenhagen, Denmark. When we're talking about transfer, I make sure that I had already gone through most of these things: RSTP, transfer, how transfer happen, how many loan a player, because those are the things that you have to use in the industry. How many loan can a club apply to player, can send out, how many loan they can bring in, and how many loan you can give to just one club. So these are basic things you should be having an idea of, that you can only you have three maximum if it's one club. If it is just generally, your amount of players you can send out on loan as a club is six. The amount of players you can receive in generally in a season is six. So these basic things, when you're having conversation, putting this inside, it feels more natural that the person will invite you because he feels that you are valuable. You people can always share ideas on profession. And when you start having this idea, it's also easy it's also easy for someone to work with you because he feels like you have an idea of what you're doing. So it makes it easy for him to strike a deal with you. So that's the benefit. I hope the question was not too long, but that's the benefit. I mean, the answer was not too long. That's the benefit of these things. But also helps teaches it teaches me a lot, because when I come here also, apart from teaching people, it also refresh my brain, because for me to tell people most of the things, also I have to also keep doing my research. So because the laws keep changing, you need to also go and do your research always. What was applied in 2024 can be different. That's why you see the study materials is always important. To the study materials, what I wrote in 2024, there are some laws what must have changed, and some things that FIFA has brought into effect, and some things that have been, let's say, swept aside. So each time the law is changing, you also have to be looking at things. But thanks, that was a good question. I would like to have more of this kind of questions. Let's see. Let's see. What is the topic? So I was just looking at the topic. Just trying to add some questions for tomorrow. Just a moment, guys. But of course, tomorrow we're going to do same RSTP. I'm just trying to adjust some few things. We're going to do RSTP, so today was the first time. Tomorrow should be the second, and maximum we should do it for 3 days. Maximum we should be able to finish it in 3 days, and then we move on to whether it's the FIFA clearinghouse or whatsoever thing we might look at. So I think after the FIFA Football Agent Regulation, if we do the RSTP, I think the FIFA clearinghouse, which the wages are paid, will be good to do. Then football tribunal is another one we can do. Safeguard we can do. Yes, just this basic one, so that at least you have an idea of both of all how the things are happening. I think yes, almost done, guys. I think this is almost done today. Let's see. I'm an aspiring agent, and I was wondering if that is needed to have a channel, as many books recommended having one. Do you mean, well, let's say I'm an aspiring agent, and I was wondering if that is needed to have a channel, as many books recommended having one. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say that this is because if you want to be an agent, let's take for example, you're trying to write and to have a license. The main thing is always to, of course, being an agent, to have the knowledge, the network to be able to speak to people, and then you bring your players. But the first thing here is this should help you refresh your brain, because with the experience I had is I discovered that when I went to, let me say, when I traveled to places, what gives me a little bit of happiness is that I can communicate with those people, not being scared that I don't know anything. Because of course, passing your license, but you still need to be able to communicate when you meet people. But yes, if this will help you, if you want to get a channel, you can also do it, because this will help you refresh your brain. That will really help you a lot. This will help you refresh your brain. That will be big learning. That's a big way you can also teach people. Then it helps you keep your brain active a lot, because once you stop learning, your brain those things start going out of your brain. But if you use this for learning, it helps a lot. So that will be a motivation. Like for me, it's a motivation because I feel I have a program that I want to travel most of the time to go and communicate or build my network. And within that time, when I go there, it's almost like, while traveling, it's almost like a marketing also, that I have to speak well, communicate well, to be able to teach people. And also, as an agent, if you also have this, probably like, because then at one point in time, if you're even on LinkedIn, you can be having it's a good thing because you can speak at conferences. Because when you start communicating like this, at one point in time, you can be called, given a gig to come and speak at and conferences as an agent. So that's also one nice thing. So there's a lot of positive behind it also. Let's see, I'm an husband. And let's see the next one. What do you think of those agency charging fees in thousands to prepare people to take and pass their exam? Is it really necessary to join those training to pass? Yes, actually. Well, the thing is, with the exam, if you can pass, because I'm also hosting the exam, but if you can pass the exam without without paying fees for someone, then you can. If you know you are ready to pass, then go. You can do that. But if you feel you need assistance, then you have to do that, because the thing with the exam is you only write the exam one, and if you, I can only speak from my experience, uh, because when I was writing the exam, I was said when I passed the exam, I'll think of two friends. I think I've told you this story, that when I was preparing for the exam, I had to also look for someone to try to mentor me back then. But I had this friend that was telling me that no, the exam is multiple choice question. No matter how it is, I might go and pass my own way. But because maybe I valued my license so much and I wanted to pass the exam. Let's just say it like that. I valued the license because I was thinking that if I have the license, I have that huge opportunity to travel anywhere and speak like an agent. As I said, majority of people in the industry say they are agent, but they are not agent also because they don't have a license. They can only speak in the background, but they cannot show their license. And those kind of people, they're never going to approach clubs, because the moment you approach a club, you have to work with it as an agent. You see, so for me, I had thought about this because I wanted to make a career as an agent. It might be for other people. It's just like, well, if I pass the exam, I pass. If I don't pass, but for me, I didn't have that option, because I had seen that I had already started saying that to be an agent, I didn't want to be a coach, although I had opportunity to be a coach, but I didn't want to be a coach. Let's say, for example, I wanted something that I would travel, sit in stadiums, watch games, analyze, scout a player, bring into my agency, get paid for that, or advertise him, get paid for that. So almost, if I get this right, I was saying on my brain, if I get this right, it's like, because I love to do those things, it's like pay me to do something that I like to do for free. Because I would like to do the agency work for free because I play football. I would like to do it for free, to be honest. It's nice to try, but for you to do those things, you also need the finance to travel and everything. So I just thought that that would be I really valued that I need to have my license because I don't want to go. Then I see that, oh my God, I want to really do this license. And then out of a sudden, I don't pass or whatsoever. So for me, that was it. But another person might have maybe other options saying that maybe he doesn't need to have the license, to be honest. He might do another job. But for me, I didn't have any second job. What I mean, second job is that I wanted something because I want to be happy doing this. And I started getting that feeling. I don't know if I've said that yet. When I traveled to Norway, going to interview CEOs, sat behind the car, taxi, just doing my notes. And I was saying that, oh my God, what a privilege just to travel, go speak to CEOs, then watching how the professional players are training there, networking with academic coaches or networking with sporting directors, them telling you, okay, if you have these certain players from the African market, we can talk together, we can work on this. If you have this player from certain market, you can contact me, we share contact, all those things. Those things, if I didn't have a license, there's no chance I'm having this conversation. You understand? So that is where the license permit me to enter. And that's what your license, that's where a license can permit you to enter. Okay, let's see. What do you think of? Okay, I've answered that. By the way, my name is Fabius. I am blessed. I am based in the US of USA. Yeah. I think the US market MLS and the USL is still an uncharted territory as there are very few Africans player here. Uh yeah, but I understand you because first of all, the US, of course, they play football there, but it's not. When we talk of football, football is played. Actually, let's say in Europe. You understand what I mean? Of course, Saudi is growing, but when you talk of football is played in Europe. So normally, if someone builds his career from the US, he wants to at one point in time come to play in the Champions League. If the person is good, plays in the Champions League or play whatever level he wants to play. But I give example just for myself. I found myself in Europe, and I said what's a privilege to work here because it makes me travel Denmark, whatsoever place I want to travel, just move around, scouting these players. So just to come back to your question, the license things was never something that I was going to ignore. And the friends that because the friends that I took an extra step just to get my license, they ended up giving up for their license because the exam, as I said, the exam is if for me, I always say if if you prefer if you know you are going to do something to pass the exam that you just have like that can give you just a single question, I mean a single right question, do it because in future you are not going to regret that. That's just a fact. You are not going to regret that. It's going to help you so much. But thanks again for those questions. Those are nice questions. What do you think about US market as an agent? Uh, US market as an agent, probably I don't really think about it that much because maybe because I'm the location I'm in Europe here, and then most of the time I try to look out, let me say, young players, scouting young players here, letting them grow because that's a model I like to go for. Let's say looking at the 14, 15, 16 years old, they're hidden gem, then putting them to professional club, the clubs that have real connection with thinking that in 1, 2 years, those players will be signing their professional contracts. If you can have like 4, 5, 6, 7 players that are really talented players that you feel they can play for most top clubs in Europe, like the big clubs in Europe. So the idea is that's my idea. So in that way, I don't really too much look at the US. Of course, football is played everywhere, but I haven't really thought of that to scout. Excuse me, looking at scouting players in that direction. But of course, everywhere there's football. It's just that, as I said, football is a lot played in Europe, yeah, because it's more, the intensity and everything is much more higher here. A lot. Let's see. Yes, okay. But anyways, those were good questions. And if nothing much, and then tomorrow I'll go off now. Then tomorrow we meet again for part of the RSTP. I was just looking at the questions. What I'll give you. I'll give you for tomorrow. So anything, if not, then we can meet again tomorrow and talk and try to see how we'll go from there. It's always nice having this kind of conversations a lot because I also, of course, I speak a lot there, but it's nice having this kind of conversation. You speak and you try to get ideas of many stuffs about stuff, and just to end up with the US market. I think most people also in Europe, because you don't actually know a market till actually you go there. But I haven't really thought of like going to the US market because that's not a market I want to really work with now. Probably in future, the market I would like to work in, like for example, I'm looking at is like the Norwegian market, Norway, Denmark, because now the football in Scandinavia is quite good, especially in those countries. So if you're having a player playing for a team in Norway, it's easy that he can leap from Norway, Belgium to the Premier League, whatsoever, because the quality of the league is very good now. So because I've been there to watch how the training session and everything, so the quality is quite high, and same like Denmark. But Denmark was first, let me say, a very good at a very good level in Scandinavia, but now Norway is like leading actually. So those are the both markets I'm looking at right now actually, because my target is to look at 15, 16, 14, 15, 16 years players who are almost going professional, putting them into those professional academy within 1 to 2 years. They should be signing their first contract. Then I continue with them. That's the lane. Okay, but without anything, let's say, did you have to go through a scouting training to be able to detect good young players? That's a nice one. Um, I had a decent. I had a communication. I had a conversation with uh, Chris Robinson. That's former former head of academic Chelsea of Chelsea Football Club, because he had been there for 30 years. So I wanted to also know a little bit about scouting, how to, so had a conversation and we spoke what you look for in a player. Then actually there was a book that he's also having a book apart from the conversation, but he's having a book that actually is just about the scouting game that I picked up from him to learn some few things there. Also did some courses about scouting to know, just to learn how player behavior, and what to look for. That's where also I learned that the skills. He said actually a story that he went for a scouting a game with his scouting game to scout a player, a very talented player, with his wife. So that was the first time he went there with his wife, and his wife just wanted to leave the house, for example, to go watch the game because he has been saying that he has to scout this player. And when he arrived there, the player actually scored 2 goals, but he ended up taking another player. So during the scouting, his wife saw things different, but he was, as a scout for, or someone who has been working in football for close to 30 years, he was seeing the game different. He was watching what is the player's movement without the ball, his first touch, his behavior with and without the ball. So those were the things he was more interested. He was not interested whether the player has 1v1 to dribble past players, all those things. So when we're having conversation, so this kind of things, it was an eye opener because normally when you're just entering into football, you start to think like you want to just have the most skillful player in your team, but also those most skillful players are not also the player who actually make it up. You have to have mentalities, certain resilience, because to become a professional football player, you're going to go through this. So, and the player he scouted ended up playing professional football. The player he didn't scout during that time ended up not playing professional football. Of course, you might say him scouting that player, of course, he's going to take the player to a professional club. But what I'm just saying is the player he didn't scout ended up not playing because he as much as he scored 2 goals, he only came alive when he had the ball. When he didn't have the ball, not so good mentality. So everything as explained. But anyway, it was nice to it's Chris Robinson. He has one of the book. I think the scouting game, if I'm not mistaken, the scouting game. I think I spoke with him on LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn. I spoke with him, but he has a book, the scouting game. If I'm not, yeah, that is a good book that from time to time I try to go over it. And I was asking him about a player called was it? No, I didn't ask him, but he scouted. There was a player called Charlie Muson that was a very skillful player. He was almost like the next Eden Hazard. Why he didn't work? But well, I'll save the conversation for next time. But anyways, if you're interested in learning more about scouting after you pass your exam, those are the kind of things you can have an idea to look at because it's more interesting to know which kind of player you scout. Because as an agent, you need to give yourself that time to say, okay, at the beginning you're going to be yourself. You're going to be the only one doing that. But when you start, maybe when you make your first few, let's say money, then you can in future maybe bring a scout because you cannot do all those things. You bring a scout now to your agency who can scout like in Africa, whatsoever places, Europe, whatsoever places you may want to get players from. So that's how it works. But also, when bringing a scout, you need to know. I hope it's a good scout, someone who can work with you because there are a lot of you're going to have a lot of friends who try to say they'll be your scout, but eventually they'll not be a scout because they are just being there expecting that waiting for nice things to happen, if I may say that. So you have to find someone a scout who knows how to scout in football, who knows all these things. Your friend cannot know all these things because he's not in that industry, he's not in that business. But most of the time, when you pass your license, I understand that it's an exciting time for everyone, the people around you or friends or whatever. Someone can say, who knows nothing about football or about scouting, say he wants to be a scout. And when he goes to scout, someone who knows nothing, he sees player differently from how when you have read that book and done something, you see player, you start to analyze the players in a different way. Let's see. I would love to connect and talk more because I know for a fact I will learn a lot from you. Can you be my mentor? Yes, for now. But the best thing I would say now is in future. You have one task. I think you did you write did you register for the exam already? I think did you register for the exam? I think probably you did. If you're here, you register for the exam. Yes, in future we can do that. Okay, good. If you register for the exam, so now your first focus is like because the exam is tricky. I must say that I don't want to say tough, but it's tricky. So that's the first step to getting a professional career out of this is getting your license. That's more important because after that, anything, anywhere you want to go, it can happen. You might decide that you want to work for an agency. For an agency, you might decide you want to build by yourself. But for me, I decided to build by myself because I know how the agency work. As I told you earlier, that most agency they are big agency, but when you bring a player, what happens is that player gets sold. Let's take for example, you bring a player to a big agency, and if the player gets sold to Chelsea, you don't actually get certain commission. You are just given a certain small percentage of the salary of a salary of a small amount of salary, and then they tell you this network we sold the player to Chelsea because we have the network. So most agency function like this. So you see so you can be working them. But one thing, the advantage that you see there is you're actually doing the transfer. So you learn the network, you learn to network, you see how things are happening. But based on other things, it will be different. So those are a few things that if you learn with big agency, you can pick them easily. I want to be independent, collaborate with fellow agents. Well, yes, being independent means you have to also, let me say, put in hard work, but which is nice because you're in control of your time. That's the most important thing. If you want to put in hard work, which means, for example, you have to learn to let's say travel by yourself to go and scout. Let's take for example, I scouted a young player who was 4 years, very talented player, and I put him in a professional academy. But the young player, I had to move. I traveled from here, let's say from my home to 1 hour 30 minutes just to watch his game by car. That's normal. So I I had seen the player play, but normally you don't tap in player because it's a 14 years old player. So spoke with the coach, say I'm coming. I asked what was the next game, and the coach told me, gave me the timetable, traveled to the place, watched the player, saw how good he was happy with him, spoke to his parent, and then I started giving him one or few mentorship, and then from there I saw that he's ready, that he can mix, that he can play. Took him for a professional club, in a professional club, and he went for trials there. The first day he passed the trials, and now he plays there. So our aim now with my aim or our my aim now with him is to let him play the national team. Goes from there, play the national team. Then from there, speaking with already clubs out of Finland, like in Norway, Denmark, to take him to the various academy there. So step by step. Then from there, I can take him to another club out of no. So the next progress will be like Norway because he's playing in a professional team here. Norway, from Norway it can be like Belgium, Germany, England, Spain, those places. So yes, that's the. But I'm happy doing this way because I'm in control of my time. I can travel anywhere, everywhere I want. So I don't have to sit. Let's say, then probably someone telling me, okay, now you go and scout in this area, those kind of things. I would love to connect and talk more. Okay, no. Yes, I want to be independent, collaborate with more agents. Yeah, which is okay. I just explained. What is the price of hiring a scout to scout for you? What is the price what is the price to hire a scout to scout for you? No, it's more about, let's say, with the scouting thing, it's more of like you looking for someone. Let's take, for example, the location also matters. If I'm hiring a scout, let me say originally I'm from Cameroon, but I've been living in Finland here so long, so I stay here permanently. But let's give an example. I'm just giving an example. If I'm scouting a player from my country, Cameroon, what actually happens is you can negotiate with someone easily and say, okay, you'll be in charge of this, and each player you bring into the agency, which quite good. These are the qualities I want in the agency. Each player you bring, this is how we can get paid. You can get paid. So it's not that really much money. It depends what you negotiate. But hiring a scout, most of the time the scouts are also willing to even say, I want to do partnership. I want to work under the agency, because the best way is, because if you want to be rich as an agent, you need a lot of people to work. You cannot do it yourself. So the best way to always do this is you take that scout and say, okay, this is an entire business. I'm the agent because I'll be running and doing the negotiation, signing the contract, whatsoever contract. Your job as that and task is to go around looking for player. When you scout see a certain player that meet our profile that we want, we can evaluate that player, all of us, and then we talk to his parents and bring it to the industry and then bring him to the agency. Now, you as an agent, your job, it will be easier if you when you have your license, you have this group of people, but it will take time to find them. Then with this group of people, your job is to look for clubs to network with sporting directors, so that when you arrive there, when you build the network, you can start telling sporting directors you have this player. So there you can turn that industry into millions easily if you have a scout who knows what to do. If you have someone, let me say, it's an accountant who is just taking details whatsoever. It depends how you plan the agency. But if you do it alone, then you have to be the scout. You have to be the person going to network. You have to be the person still always communicating every time with the parents of the players, which is very hard because you grow gradually, but it will take time. So the best advice is when you have your license, you try to out or do certain moves, which will really help. That if you can already start doing now, even that if you can already know few people that you know that they are like good scout, that you can already start talking with them. That if I have a license, this is what we do. You go around looking for players like this, but serious people, not people who are joking. I mean serious people, because if you focus on this model, you're going to make more millions easily, because your job as that agent at that time is just to work and network, not scouting. Networking with club, because that's how you get your players signing for clubs within by networking with sporting directors, head of recruitment, just telling them you have players of this level, of this quality, while your scouts are scouting the players and bringing to the agency. So if you do those things, then everyone grows, the agency grows faster. Like, I'm looking for scout, but I take time to hire the scouts. I take time because each person, I'm too focused in certain things. Each person I want to bring, I make sure the person is a higher performer. What I mean by higher performer is I make sure the person is disciplined, strict, maintain time and everything, bringing players regularly. I don't want to bring someone that I feel like the person is not working everything. Okay. So those are the things that I'm always looking at. That's very important. Yes, next. Let's see. My light just went off. One moment, guys. Let me try to see. I have to put my light on this. Just a moment. Let's see. Yes, nice. Okay. For tomorrow's sessions, can you have questions on display screen so we can all read together, and maybe you give us a few questions to answer on our own in the chat? On display screen, we cannot have that on display. So what I'll do is I will call each question I'm writing. That's a good point. Each question I'm answering, I will just post it on the screen so that you can read. Let's take for example. So I will just post the questions. What was today's session? It's a fight is already. Let's see. Let me try something. If this goes. Let me look at this question 5. I'm just trying to see if I post it. Yeah, if I put it here on chat, it can go. Let's try something. Oh, no. Okay. It's just too much for the words cannot go because there are just too many. So for now, yeah. I would have loved to put it in the chat, but it's just that it's just too many. It cannot go. The questions are, yeah. See how much the chat contains just how many words? Really? Why is this possible? Why is this like this? I didn't discover this. Let's see. So how many words am I giving? I think I get just 100 something words. Yes, I get just 100 something words. I cannot type a lot of questions. The questions are just too long. How can I put this? I'll try to find a way. Is it that before I can send you a document for the questions? Just there's a way to share your screen so we can see what you see. That way we can answer the chat. There's a way to share my screen. Let's see, is that show? I'm trying to look. Does YouTube accept that for now? Community moderation, send feedback. Well, I'm going to try to find out about this. I'm going to find out about this sharing screen on YouTube on this in live YouTube. I haven't seen that. I haven't known that yet before. But anyway, I'm going to find out about this. If there's an option to send people the questions, then it'll be nice. Because yes, it's nice so that it's nice for you to read the questions. It's actually very helpful because you read the question yourself, and then the answers are there. It's easy to answer. But yes, that was a good suggestion. That what you said was a good suggestion. But let's see. If it doesn't go, then we see how. I don't think does YouTube have screen sharing. Just a moment. I just want to be sure. Can I share my screen? Can I share my screen during my YouTube? So my audience can see. I think that is more for when you're having, I think sharing the screen. Yes, you can share your screen during a live YouTube session, but let's see, but your YouTube itself doesn't provide screen sharing directly. Okay, yes, you must use stream through broadcasting share. Okay, yes, I understand. You use those stream, yes, OBS and all those things. I understand you can use OBS and all those things. The first time when I started doing live stream, I used to use those OBS. Well, let's try to see. Let's see how it goes. I used to use StreamYard, OBS, but the thing is that the volume always comes after some time. But let's see if it doesn't go, because the reason I stopped using the live stream is that I just wanted to speak and my voice comes straight, not me speaking and it comes after a little bit slow. But let's see how it goes with the OBS or StreamYard. Let's try it tomorrow. Let's see how it goes. I'll test it within the day tomorrow. If it doesn't work, then first thing I'm going to let you know tomorrow. But if it goes, then happy days. We're going to do that. Then it'll be nice for we also that you can see. That will be actually very good to see that, to do that. Okay, but I think it's time to go. So tomorrow we start 9:30 p.m. Eastern European time. Some people came a little bit late, but I understand you might be doing one or two things, and I totally understand that. But at least you can still go back to try to watch the session. It's more easier if you miss something, since it's something that you can spend your time doing it alone. But let me leave you for now. Let me try to do one or two things before I go to bed. It's already past 11 here. So we see you tomorrow and talk to you. I hope the session was good for you today. So we see you tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern European time. Bye for now. Cheers.